Hey everyone, this is David Pike, the Motorcity Mechanic, and I'm back with another video. Now today I want to show you step by step what you need to do when it comes to removing this third brake light assembly on this Jeep Grand Cherokee. Now the particular vehicle we're working on today is a 2011 Jeep Grand Cherokee. Now I'm also going to include right here all the other vehicles that this procedure applies to. Now also we're going to go over all the tools you need to do the job, step by step how to do the job, and also some of the precautions you need to take, that way you don't damage any of the painted surfaces. Now I want to quickly break down everything we're getting ready to do. Now as we go through the video, we'll get more and more into the details as we go through each one of the steps, but for right now I'm going to just summarize everything that's about to happen. Now this third brake light assembly. It actually fastens to the inside of the upper housing, which means the upper housing has to come off in order to gain access to it. The other thing is that third brake light is LED, meaning there are no replacement bulbs. If you find out that the light's not working and it's got power and ground, you're replacing that entire third brake light section right here. Now in order to take it off, we've got to disconnect the electrical connector for that third brake light. Also the washer nozzle hose has to be disconnected. Both of those are done from inside the vehicle by removing the upper trim panel. Once that's removed, we open up the rear glass and we get access to all the fasteners attaching that assembly to the glass. And then from there we can go ahead and shut the glass, lift the assembly off, put it on the bench and start breaking it down and removing the third brake light assembly. That's everything that's about to happen. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Now here are all the tools we need to do this job. We've got tape right here so that we don't damage any of the painted surfaces. We've got our plastic trim sticks here. That way we can actually separate the third brake light assembly from the housing. And also we've got a 1/4 inch ratchet extension, a T25 Torx bit, 7mm socket, and a 10mm socket. First step, opening up the rear hatch. Now the electrical wiring in the washer nozzle hose has to be disconnected and actually pulled through the body of the vehicle. Now in order to get to those connection points, this upper trim panel on the top of the body has to be removed. It's just a matter of grabbing one edge and pulling downward. As you can see on the back side, we got some metal snaps. When you go back, you got to make sure you line them up properly and give them a gentle tap to reseat them. Like I said, we've got to remove this so that we can get to the electrical connector and also to the rubber hose for the washer nozzle. So now that we've got the trim panel removed, we've got access to both the washer nozzle hose and the third brake light connector. Now on that third brake light connector, all we need to do is squeeze in on the lock, slide it back, and now it's disconnected. So we'll move on to the washer nozzle hose and work on disconnecting that. Now the washer hose is actually a quick connect style. We'll be squeezing in right here on the top and bottom of the hose that goes to the body, and then we'll pull out on the hose that goes up towards that third brake light. Now sometimes you can squeeze it by hand, get it off. Sometimes if you can't, you can actually use a pair of pliers to squeeze it. Once you squeeze it, you should be able to work it loose as well. As you just saw a minute ago, I'll do it one more time. All you got to do to reinstall it is press it back in until you hear the snap. Pull it on a couple times just to make sure that it is fully seated. So we'll go ahead and remove it one more time, and then we'll work on getting that assembly off. So now that we've got the washer hose and the connector disconnected, we can go ahead and shut the rear hatch and move over to actually opening the back glass. So if we look between the hatch and the body of the vehicle, we'll see that there's a total of 4 different harnesses going through here. We've got the 2 rubber boots right here. Now these have wiring going to the hatch itself, everything from the wiper motor to the tail lights. It's the 2 smaller ones that we'll be dealing with. Now the one on the right side, this one is actually for the heated rear glass. That one we'll be leaving alone. It's the one on the left side, driver's side, that has the wiring both for the third brake light and also has the hose for the washer nozzle. That's what we're going to be grabbing and pulling on. We've already got it disconnected from down below, so when we grab on this and start pulling, we'll be able to break the rubber boot loose and actually pull the harness and the hose out through the opening. So all we have to do is actually grab a hold of that harness and just pull straight up. And now the rubber boot is no longer attached to the body, and we can actually work the connector and the hose for the nozzle off. So if you look closely at the harness that we just pulled through, you'll see that on that rubber grommet that goes through the sheet metal, that seals it up so we don't get no water leaks, there's actually a rubber finger that sticks down. Now that rubber finger is to aid in reinstalling the harness. You're going to actually sit everything back through the hole, and then you're going to reach up in there, grab that rubber finger right there, twist it, pull it till it fully seats the rubber grommet. So it's an aid there to help pull it through. Now if you look between the hinges on that rear glass, you'll see that there's a total of 2 wiring harnesses and 1 rubber hose. One of those harnesses is for the heated rear glass. The second harness is for that third brake light on the assembly. Rubber hose is for the washer nozzle. Now there are 2 plastic fingers here that help guide the harness, that way they do not get in a bind when the hatch is opening and closing regularly. What we've got to do is actually pull those harnesses off of those plastic fingers. Now in order to get those harnesses and that rubber hose off, what we got to do is we got to pull down on the finger right here. Just pull down and slide the harnesses and the rubber hose off, and we'll repeat the same thing on the lower finger as well. This way we got some slack in the harness, and this won't stop us from actually pulling this off. Now that we've got the rear glass opened up, we can actually see the fasteners that attach that assembly to the rear glass. Now the next step in the removal is we're going to go ahead and take the 4 Torx bolts off, and once we get those off, we'll move on to the hinges where we got the 10mm nut there, and we got the 10mm nut there. Now what you're going to need in order to get those Torx bolts off is a T25 bit. Go ahead and start and pack each one of these off. So if you look closely at where that T25 bolt goes, you'll see that this is actually the glass right here. There are holes drilled through the glass, and that's where the bolt goes through. And it takes a special bolt. Now those 4 T25 Torx that we took off, if you look at the bolts closely, you'll see that there's an actual raised area. What that does is, number one, it centers itself in the hole in the glass, and second, it also prevents you from over tightening the bolt and busting the rear glass. This way you've got a space between it. Now if you were to lose this bolt or something happened to this bolt, you would need to make sure you replace it with similar design. If you go back for a regular bolt, chances are you're going to over tighten and end up busting the rear glass. So it's very important to go back with the original hardware. Now with all the Torx removed, we're down to the 2 10mm nuts. Now that plastic panel assembly is designed so that even after we take all the fasteners off, it's not just going to fall off. So we don't have to worry about sitting here and holding it so that when we go to remove it, we don't scratch anything. For the time being, it's still in place. Mainly because that stud with that 10mm nut that we took off earlier is part of the assembly, and it's still protruding through the hinge. Next to it, we got a plastic guide there, a little pin that actually guides it through the hole and lines it up with the hinge as well. So we're good there. Now what we want to do is go ahead and grab that outer assembly and push on it. We want to make sure that it's broke loose, because as they are attached over the years, they do have a tendency to want to stick with the foam or the rubber seals that actually attach it to the glass. So just push up. You may have to add a little bit of pressure to break it loose, and you want to see some movement. And we'll do this to both sides. And there we have it. Now we've got both sides broke loose. The assembly should be ready to be removed. So at this point, we're ready to shut the rear glass so we can get access to that panel. So that I don't worry about scratching anything, I'm just going to use some tape. Just going to run it down the edge of the body of the vehicle. That way, if any contact is made with that panel, I don't have to worry about scratching either one of them. And this tape is easily removable. And if I want, I can actually put some on the panel itself for the same reason. I just want it to look the same way it was when we took it off before we give it back to the customer. So now we're ready to just lift straight up with the assembly. As we go up, we're going to grab that harness and that hose and reposition it and pull it out. That way it doesn't bind up on anything. Now we can just take it straight over to the workbench. So I went ahead and laid out something on the workbench so I can continue with that whole not wanting to scratch the paint technique. And now we've got everything you can see on the back side. As you can see, we got the one main harness that went through the light, also the washer nozzle. And you also got the mounting area where the Torx bolts went with the little foam seals. These were the seals I was telling you about that you might have to break loose if it's been on there for a while. Now that third brake light assembly is attached with a total of 2 7mm bolts. Also, you've got an electrical connector going to it that we need to disconnect. Just need to squeeze in on the lock, slide it off. And then go ahead and proceed to taking your 2 7mm bolts off. Now that we've got the fasteners taken loose and that electrical connector, we're just about ready to take that third brake light assembly out. But we still got one more step. Right now it's kind of sandwiched and locked into place. What we've got to do is we've got to wedge something between the top of that third brake light assembly and this upper housing to separate the two. That way we can release it and take it out. Now what I'm going to be using is a plastic trim stick. Now you can pick this up at any one of your local auto repair stores. Now they come in a package of different sizes and different varieties of them. You can also get them from Harbor Freight. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a link to Amazon in the description below the video where you can purchase these as well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wedge it between the two like I mentioned and kind of get it to release while I'm pushing from the front side. And there we have it. We've got our third brake light assembly, and if we need to replace it due to being scratched up, if it stopped working for whatever reason, that's how you take it off. So when you're ready to go back with your replacement third brake light assembly, you need to take a little care when you're going back in there. You can see right here we got some plastic fingers that stick up. If you don't go in right, you may have the tendency to actually scratch the lens. So you need to take a little care when you get it down in there. It doesn't hurt to rotate the assembly up so you can see it a little bit better. So just take your time and try to line everything up the best you can. And usually about the time it sits flush, you hear it snap into place. So now all we got to do is reattach those 2 7mm bolts on the bottom and the electrical connector. We're ready to take it back over to the vehicle and reinstall. Now the installation of that assembly is just the opposite of removal. If you follow all the steps we went through to remove it, you shouldn't have any problems reinstalling it. Now when you're going back with that wiring harness, be careful when you're reinserting it through the body with that washer nozzle hose that you fully seat the rubber grommet. By pulling on that rubber finger, that way it actually pops into place and we don't have any water leaks around it. Then verify that the third brake light works and also that the washer nozzle does spray. So if you follow all these steps, you shouldn't have any problems and in the end save you some money. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube. Don't forget you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you got any comments or suggestions about the video today on this third brake light assembly or anything Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram related, you can always email me at david@motorcitymechanic.com and I'll try to get back to you in a timely manner. Also, if you use the link in the description below the video, either to buy those plastic trim strips or anything else on Amazon, I will get compensated for that and get credit. So that's one way you can help support the channel with actually not opening up your wallet and donating money, just by doing what you always do on Amazon, which most of us do already. If you're a new viewer, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're a returning subscriber, make sure to click on the bell icon next to the subscribe button. That way you get notified instantly when videos such as this get uploaded. In the meantime, thank you everyone for watching these videos.